Okay.
So hi, I'm Rebecca
Hi.
Vernooy, and it's great to meet you, e-meet you. Well, more than e-meet you, virtually meet you, which is always odd. Um, I'm in Athens, Ohio. I am a professor of theater here, and I've been here for 14 years. I was in New York City for 20 years before that, doing movement theater and acting and directing and choreographing and writing and teaching and doing what a lot of us independent artists do. Um, so I've I've been doing authentic movement since 1980. No, that's not. No, that's not true. 1982.
Wow.
So I was introduced to authentic movement by Daphne Lowell at Hampshire College, where I was an undergrad, and have really been doing it ever since. And it changed, when I was introduced to the practice at so I must have been 19 or 20. Oh my God, 19 or 20 years old. And Daphne is still a mentor of mine. I actually just did a, a, a series of workshops with her. So that feels really significant to me, that my through line as a human being, but also as a mover and as a professional theater maker, that Daphne's, always been there, in, if not in person, in spirit. And when I first was introduced to it, I felt, I mean, it's hard to say, because what do you know at 19 or 20 years old? Of course you think you know everything. And then I'm working with 19 and 20 years olds all the time. And I think, well, what do they know? Not to undermine them. Of course, they're my students and I love them. But I think I always felt split, and I still do. My job is to keep integrating, to keep, keep finding, remembering who I am in truth, which sounds really like big, and it is. And I keep forgetting what that is, because I often think that what I do and what I do for a living and all the roles I play are my truth, and they're really not. So authentic movement allows me to drop into, like, oh, this is who I am. It's much bigger than all the little daily ego stuff that I get entangled in. So I find, for me, authentic movement, I get to be in my best self, or at least confront even the crappy, shitty things about me. It's like, oh, that's what you're doing. It's a great process to keep things in perspective. We have built-in forgetters. I steal I steal a lot of my language from 12 steps. I'm an alcoholic who's been in recovery for 30 years. So a lot of the language I use comes from 12 steps. But this idea of having built-in forgetters is a big one for me. And authentic movement allows me to remember, oh, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. And for me, all the work I do as a theater maker, as a professor, as a person, ultimately the root of it is all authentic movement.
I think that spoke to me the most in our short correspondence previous to this meeting. So how do you perceive, well, maybe we won't, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get this out right. um, let me start over. What would your life look like without authentic movement? And
did I interrupt you? Sorry.
no, that's it. Just
Well, I think it'd be a little crazier. I mean, authentic movement to me it's similar to my meditation practice.
mm-hmm.
So when I'm not meditating, my crazies come out much more regularly. My crazies being my bombardment of thinking, my reaction, my reactiveness. I'm very impulsive, and I spent my youth not pausing between impulse and action. So I think without authentic movement, I think I'd be spinning my wheels a lot more. I think I would be in, also for me, authentic movement's a real palate cleanser, if you will. So I'll just go to the studio often and just roll around and sound and move. And it's really a way to get all those daily stressors and those stories that inhabit my body, to a way to get them out of my body, to process them, to let go of I guess all of the extra tension of faulty thinking, negative story making. So without authentic movement, I think I'd be a lot more unconscious. Just going through my life without pause, without well, it's interesting also because I teach movement for actors and devise theater. So there, in my practice, in my physical practices beyond authentic movement, a lot of that is taken care of too. What authentic movement is different than yoga for me, in that get more deeply into the emotional, I think, and then I'm able to move it out of my body instead of carry these things with me day to day. I mean, not that I don't. I carry a lot with me that I really don't want to carry with me. And I think that's a lifelong process of each of us, wherever our practices are. How do we negotiate day-to-day living?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, authentic movement also reminds me to come back to my body. It helps me find my ground. Yoga, all my movement practices help me find my ground also, but authentic movement refines my consciousness, my awareness around my body mind.
So it's more integrated as far as mind, body, spirit, collective consciousness.
Yes, collective consciousness is a really big one. Yeah. And I do love authentic movement. It's so interesting to talk to people about authentic movement, because I do it all the time. I do it often.
Mm-hmm.
And then even in peer groups, I do it, but we don't talk about it. We don't excavate the why and the how, and how is it integrated into our day-to-day. All the questions you actually sent me, we don't really discuss those things. So it's really nice to go, oh, what is it?
Is there something in the way that you approach authentic movement that feels very Rebecca? It's just really you. I think one of the significant points of trying to converse about authentic movement is that it really follows the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that our practice then is an extension of our individuality. So I'm wondering what makes it very much your own.
Well, it because I'm starting in my own body. I'm starting with my own impulse. So, yeah, yes, authentic movement is very much me. Out of any place, really, in my life, I think walking into a studio to do authentic movement, or it used to be when I'd ever walk into a dance studio, and still to this day, I walk into a movement studio. It doesn't have to be a dance studio, just a movement studio. That's where I feel at home. And it's not just because I was trained as a dancer, but there's something about that container, and the same with authentic movement. I think that it does allow me, it does, it is very much me more than anything else, because it moves beyond the roles. It moves beyond the professor or the mother or the daughter or the wife. And that in authentic movement, I get a much more expansive experience of being. And that is such a relief. And it's interesting because when I train students in it, they initially feel, I mean, a lot of them, I was like, oh my God, it's like coming home. And it's just like often a really emotional experience for young students, college age, because I think there's a sense of sadness or loss in realizing, wow, what have I been doing? But now I'm moving, I get to actually be myself. So there's this emotional experience of coming back to yourself. I think it's easier for me to see it that way in my students. I mean, and then some students are like, I don't know what the hell we're doing, you know, so it's not, it's not like this universal experience. Mm-hmm. But yes, I mean, authentic movement, authentic, and a lot of people get hung up on the word authentic. What is it? What is authentic, right? So for me, it's a felt sense. It's yeah, I know it when I'm in it. Mm-hmm. Just like when you see somebody, you talk to somebody, you know it when they're in it, or you know it when they're playing a role, or you know it when they're hiding, which is, we all do that. Mm-hmm. But being as a witness in authentic movement, it really levels the playing field for me also, because then I get to be with people in this. I don't want to sound pretentious, and often when I start talking about it, my own little editor is going, "Oh, that sounds really pretentious," or "That sounds really." I don't need to actually. That's fine. I don't need to concern myself with that.
Please don't, because if nothing else, authentic moments is all about, you know, that inclusiveness.
Yeah.
So
So for me, when I'm in um, either facilitating or in a peer group, I get to be in community on such a more joy-filled, or it's kind of detached and unentangled from all the daily bullshit, you know, from all the conflict and the stories we project and the miscommunications and the misunderstandings. That, for me, like in the best sense, in authentic movement, that's where I get to be in community in that practice. Yeah, it's really, it's something I strive for. I think unconsciously strive for. How can I do that in my day-to-day being with people? You know, I am by nature, I don't know if by nature, I am very judgmental. You know, I'm very negative. And that, which is crazy because I'm also very not. I'm very much passionate and joyful and delight in life also, right? But authentic movement gets me out of that negativity, gets me out of my own habit of faulty thinking and, or destructive thinking, not faulty, destructive thinking, overthinking. And I think that's why I was drawn to it, because because I am an addict, right? I'm in AA, they say we come for our drinking, but stay for our thinking. And I think that's why I'm drawn to authentic movement is when I come back to the body, I keep coming back to the body. And when I'm really embodied and in my body mind, that I'm able to detach from all the smoke and mirrors of thinking. I mean, not all thinking. I feel like I'm going off on tangents, but this is, you know, I think talking about authentic movement lends itself to that also.
it does, yeah.
Yeah.
For the sake of sort of condensing, which I'm finding that I could talk about authentic movement forever, but to condense the time is that we have for the interview. Is there something that you want to say to the community at large? Is there something that you feel inspired to share?
Well, I mean, something that's been coming up a lot for me is I am really interested in diversifying the practice. So I'm in university setting where diversity and inclusion is such a priority right now, that we do everything we can to be allies with our BIPOC students and colleagues. And it's really the culture we're in right now is demanding that we look at how we are perpetuating white fragility, white supremacy, the oppression of people and voices. And as I'm in this culture, which can be really uncomfortable as a white woman, I recognize the thing that I do the most, the authentic movement community, from my experience, has been a very white space. And I am really interested in inviting um, my Black and brown and Indigenous colleagues and potential friends into the space with me. And I'm really interested in diversifying my own experience of what authentic movement is with diverse bodies in the space.
It, how, how do you consider that could be improved and diversified?
Well, I've been doing a series of authentic movement workshops. I'm continually doing them. And this year in COVID, I've been doing weekly free workshops, hour workshops. Like they're hour long. They've been bi-weekly lately. And I've invited my BIPOC students and alum. The students I'm working with right now, I've invited them also, but I've been more alum and more colleagues out in the world who are BIPOC. And that's one way, is I can invite people into my space, but I'm also curious practitioners who are Black and brown and Indigenous authentic movement facilitators. I would love to work with them. I would love to be in the space moving with them or being witnessed by them or witnessing them. So how can it's a little scary to talk about because I feel like I am going to say the wrong thing, or I'm going to offend, or I'm going to be, it's a pretty explosive environment around here. So all I can do is say, be mindful that I will be mindful of how I speak about it, is all I can do.
Yeah.
But I do think, putting myself in other spaces besides white spaces is important also. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It never, and I don't know if it never, I mean, it occurred to me over the years, but more so this year, my BIPOC students, what does it mean for a Black woman to be witnessed by a white woman in the practice of authentic movement? Like, that feels really loaded to me. And I would love to be in community that explores what that is.
Well, you've brought up so many questions, and I'm very hopeful that the community will pick some of this up and really go forward with it, because I think all these questions are relevant to the relationship to a global community. And so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it.
So I do have one last something to say, and then I will cut this section off and we can continue.
Okay.
Off screen, off the video. So.
Are you asking me if I have anything to say, or did you say you? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to ask me something. No, I would love to meet more like this. I'd love to meet more authentic movers. And I mean, I know a lot of them, but a lot of them I've known for a long time. And I'd also be interested to know how theater practitioners and dance professors use it in their professional teaching. Like that. There's something about I'm not a therapist. I've never been a therapist. I don't want to be a therapist. I'm a dance. I'm an actor and a mover and a choreographer. And when you invite anybody to close their eyes and move from impulse, there's always the chance that someone's going to be re-traumatized, because everything we are and have experienced is in the body. And I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I haven't had anything surface in all the years I've been doing this as a witness. I haven't had anything happen that we weren't able to contain together, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a theater practitioner. And I'm just curious now, it seems even more so now where we are as a culture, the anxiety level of our young people is really higher than ever. And the fear, and that makes sense to me. So I'm wondering how other facilitators are negotiating that in their studios and in their classrooms. I don't want to pull back on the practice with my students, although I have a little bit, because just culturally we are in such a vulnerable space.
Right.
So I'm curious how other, I mean, I'm not, again, since I'm not a therapist, yeah. I think it's giving the students agency, but they're only 19 and 20 years old, so.
Or everyone agency. I think that is something that we easily follow into a pattern of hierarchy, when for me authentic movement should have none. There should be no hierarchy. Everybody should have equal agency. And so I think that would be a great discussion.
Yeah.
As more and more, particularly in an academic situation, I've come across people that say there's only one way to do authentic movement, and I sort of go, what? But it has happened, and to me, that's the last perception anybody should ever take away from an authentic movement experience, is that there is never one way. And so.
Yeah, I mean, I do, just like any sort of dance training or theater training or any sort of training, there is no one way.
Right.
And also, if younger people aren't used to making their own choices and being, stepping into their own, I don't think our educational system cultivates that, actually. I think our K through 12 doesn't cultivate, I mean, depends on where you are, finding and expressing your voice and stepping into to be embodied. And so often college age students are walking in wanting to be told what to do, and that for me is the antithesis of what I'm doing as a theater practitioner, and certainly as an authentic movement. It's like Daphne and Alton Wasson is also one of my mentors. You are the expert on your own movement. You are the expert on your body. You know your body better than I do. So I always start with that.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully by being the outer witness, it can help grow their own inner witness, grow their own, oh yeah, this is what I am. This is who I am. Yeah.
Great.